Hello, Virgo. Okay. The material transformation approaching you is beyond your current imagination. Subscribe because this abundance is gathering force. There's convergence of tangible blessings crystallizing in the architecture of your near future, wealth materializing through channels you haven't fully recognized yet, shelter manifesting in forms that will cradle you more completely than anywhere you've rested before. And underneath it all, a foundation solidifying that will hold you steady through storms you've been weathering with nothing but your own trembling strength. Finally, finally giving you ground solid enough to stop bracing and start building. Start thriving. Start exhaling. This isn't modest improvement where your situation gets slightly more comfortable in incremental ways, where you climb one rung higher on ladder you've been struggling to ascend. This is quantum leap into entirely different stratum of existence, where the daily mathematics of survival stop dominating every decision, where resources flow with enough abundance that you can make choices based on desire rather than desperation, where home stops being just shelter from elements and becomes sanctuary that actually feeds your soul instead of just housing your exhausted body. And the unawareness of coming happiness that reveals you've been living under such sustained pressure for so long, such normalized scarcity and instability, that you've forgotten what actual well being feels like is less than hash zero. Five hash is greater than you've adapted so completely to making do with insufficient that your imagination has stopped reaching toward sufficient. You can't picture the relief that's approaching, can't conceive the lightness, can't fathom how different your internal landscape becomes when external circumstances stop being constant threat. When survival stops consuming all available energy. When you can finally redirect attention from just getting through toward actually flourishing. In the sacred alchemy of material lack, transforming into material sufficiency. Something shifts in your cells, in your nervous system that's been running on high alert in your cortisol soaked tissues that have been preparing for disaster because disaster has been reliable companion. The body keeps score of every struggle, every near miss, every month where you weren't sure how you'd cover necessities, and when those struggles finally cease. When abundance replaces scarcity as your baseline, the relief doesn't just register in your bank account, it registers in how deeply you can finally breathe, how soundly you can finally sleep, how present you can finally be because your mind isn't constantly calculating survival logistics 3 moves ahead. Let me illuminate what forms this material transformation might take as it reorganizes your reality. In the constellation of abundance, manifesting across multiple domains simultaneously. Certain signatures announce themselves when the universe decides someone's period of struggle has served its purpose and completion arrives. Money flows from unexpected tributaries, not just salary increase, but windfall, inheritance, opportunity that generates income beyond what your current effort produces, a gift from the cosmos that feels less like earning and more like receiving what was always meant for you but got delayed in transit. Your financial landscape is likely already showing early signs of this shift. Small influxes you might be dismissing as coincidence, opportunities presenting themselves that seem too aligned to be random, people offering help or resources you didn't request, doors opening in directions you hadn't been pushing. These aren't flukes, they're tributaries joining to form the river. They're preview of the flood that's building behind the dam that's about to break in your favor. Watch for the pattern of financial ease beginning to replace financial strain. Notice when unexpected money arrives at precisely the moment you need it. Pay attention to how opportunities for generating income seem to find you rather than you having to desperately hunt them. The energy is shifting from you chasing resources to resources chasing you, from you begging life for crumbs to life offering you feast, from scarcity as your familiar companion to abundance as your new normal, that your nervous system will need time to trust as permanent rather than temporary reprieve before next disaster. Some jackpot manifestations arrive through career breakthrough, position that pays substantially more than you've been surviving on is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than promotion. That comes with compensation reflecting your actual value rather than undervaluing you've been accepting because you needed the job. Contract or deal that generates income in ways that feel disproportionate to effort required. Passive income streams that begin flowing from seeds you planted months or years ago that are finally bearing fruit. This isn't just more money, it's different relationship with money, where you stop being supplicant begging for scraps and become someone whose value is recognized and compensated appropriately. You might be approaching exactly this kind of professional elevation. Someone with authority or resources is recognizing what you bring. Conversations are happening about you in rooms you're not in yet. Offers are forming that will shift your baseline income in ways that make past struggles feel like distant memory rather than yesterday's reality. The shift won't just be numerical, it'll be existential. Changing not just what you have, but who you get to be when having isn't constant, anxious calculation. Others arrive through windfalls or gifts, inheritance finally processing, legal settlement paying out, investment maturing, tax return larger than expected, debt forgiven, someone deciding to help you in ways that feel like miracle, because help arriving unbidden when you've been struggling alone feels like universe finally remembering you exist. These influxes aren't rewards for being good. They're simply resources finding their way to you, because the blockage preventing flow has finally dissolved is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than because your frequency has shifted to match the abundance that's always been trying to reach you, because timing has aligned in ways that human planning alone cannot orchestrate. This reflection invites you to consider what would change in your daily experience if money stopped being a source of constant anxiety. Let me clarify what new home represents beyond just physical structure. Home, in its deepest sense, is where your nervous system can finally rest, where you stop performing survival and start experiencing actual living, where walls hold you rather than just sheltering you from weather, where every room whispers, "You belong here, you're safe here." You can finally stop running. The new home approaching might be literal relocation to different physical space, apartment or house that fits your needs instead of barely containing your existence, place with room to breathe instead of walls pressing in, location that feeds rather than drains you. But it's also metaphorical. Internal shift where you finally feel at home in your own life, where circumstances align enough that you stop feeling like a visitor in temporary situation waiting for real life to begin and start feeling like you're actually inhabiting the life that's yours. In the sacred significance of shelter that actually shelters, not just keeps rain off your head, but provides genuine sanctuary. There's healing that occurs at depths words struggle to reach when home has been precarious. When you've been one crisis away from losing, it is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than when you've stayed in unsafe or unsuitable places, because safe, suitable places were economically impossible. Your body never fully relaxes. Your system never fully believes. It can let guard down because home has proven unreliable, temporary, conditional on circumstances beyond your control. But when home becomes stable, truly stable, when you know you're not going to lose it, when it's actually yours, in ways that let you exhale completely, transformation happens that extends far beyond just having roof overhead. It's essential you recognize that new home might manifest as moving to different location or as your current space transforming through your changed circumstances, through ability to finally afford repairs or improvements you've been postponing, through financial stability that makes your current dwelling feel different because you're no longer terrified of losing it, through internal shift that lets you actually nest rather than just camp. The form matters less than the function. What matters is that wherever you land or whatever transforms, it becomes place where your soul can finally settle, where you can unpack completely, where you can plan beyond next month because you trust next month and the month after that will still find you here, held, secure. Some new home arrivals are literal relocations to places that have been calling you, cities or neighborhoods or specific properties you've been dreaming about, moves that become suddenly possible through the financial shift happening simultaneously is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than through job offers in new locations or through resources materializing that let you choose where you live based on desire rather than being trapped by affordability. These geographic shifts often accompany consciousness shifts. You're ready for a new place because you've become a new person. The internal transformation makes external relocation not just possible, but necessary. Necessary, because staying where you've been would mean staying who you've been, and who you're becoming needs different soil to continue growing. You might be approaching exactly this kind of significant relocation, opportunity presenting that would move you to place you've been yearning toward, circumstances aligning that make the move feasible where it wasn't feasible before, resources appearing that turn fantasy of living somewhere that actually fits you into concrete possibility with timeline and plan. The shock will be realizing it's actually happening, that you're actually going, that the life you've been imagining is materializing into life you're actually living. That escape from circumstances that have been suffocating you is real, not just wishful thinking you've been using to survive the insufferable. You'll need to trust it's real even when it feels too good to be real. You'll need to let yourself have it, even when having good things has historically meant setting yourself up for loss when good things got taken away. This reflection invites you to consider, if you could live anywhere and finances weren't constraint, where would your soul most want to rest? Let me address what stability specifically means after extended period of instability. Stability is underrated by those who've always had it, taken for granted by those whose ground has never disappeared beneath their feet. But for those who've been living on fault lines where earth shifts without warning, where one wrong move or one piece of bad luck could topple everything you've been barely holding together. Stability is oxygen after drowning, is solid ground after quicksand, is knowing that when you go to sleep tonight, you'll wake up tomorrow in circumstances that haven't catastrophically changed while you were unconscious and vulnerable. In the profound relief of circumstances that stay stable, not perfect, but predictable, not ideal, but reliable, your nervous system gets to recalibrate from survival mode to something closer to actual living. The constant vigilance can start releasing. The armor you've been wearing can start coming off piece by piece. The hypervigilance that's been scanning for next disaster can gradually wind down as your system learns through repeated experience that disaster isn't constantly imminent anymore, that you can relax slightly without everything immediately collapsing. That ground will hold you if you let your full weight rest on it rather than staying poised to jump at first sign of crumbling. It's critical you understand that achieving stability doesn't mean you'll immediately feel stable. The body takes time to believe what the circumstances are showing. Your system will keep expecting the other shoe to drop because shoes have historically always dropped is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. You'll keep bracing for crisis because crisis has been your normal, and learning to trust that normal has actually shifted requires patience with your own adaptation process. The stability is real even when you can't feel it as real yet. The ground is solid even when you're still checking beneath your feet, expecting it to give way. The security is legitimate even when your trauma trained instincts keep warning you it's temporary illusion before next catastrophe arrives. Some stability manifests as financial consistency, income you can count on, rather than feast or famine chaos, emergency fund that actually exists. Instead of being aspirational concept, you never achieve debt decreasing or eliminated, so you're not constantly robbing future self to keep present self afloat. Buffer between you and disaster that gives you room to breathe. This financial stability creates cascading stability in other domains. When money isn't constant crisis, mental energy gets freed for things beyond just survival. Creativity returns because creativity requires bandwidth. That anxiety about basic needs consumes, relationships improve because you're not just a survival machine, but actual human with capacity for presence and joy. You're likely moving into exactly this kind of financial stabilization where checking account stops giving you heart palpitations, where unexpected expenses stop being catastrophic because you have cushion to absorb them, where planning beyond immediate future becomes possible because future feels less like theoretical concept and more like place you'll actually arrive at with resources intact. The shift from financial chaos to financial stability is one of the most life altering transformations you can experience because it touches everything, affects every domain, changes who you get to be when you're not just desperately treading water hoping you can keep head above surface one more day. This reflection invites you to consider, what would you do with the mental and emotional energy currently consumed by survival anxiety if that anxiety finally released? Let me speak to the happiness you don't yet realize you're approaching. Your happiness set point has been artificially suppressed by circumstances that would suppress anyone's happiness. Constant financial stress, housing insecurity, instability that makes planning impossible and presence difficult because you're always calculating how to survive what's coming. You've adapted so completely to this suppressed baseline, gotten so accustomed to functioning under these conditions that you've forgotten what your actual natural happiness level could be if circumstances weren't constantly crushing it. If your nervous system wasn't constantly activated, if your attention wasn't constantly diverted to threat assessment and crisis management, when the jackpot arrives, when the new home materializes, when stability becomes your foundation rather than instability being your constant companion, you're going to discover happiness you didn't know you were capable of feeling. Not because you've changed as person, but because external circumstances will finally stop strangling your natural capacity for joy is less than #0. 5# is greater than will finally stop demanding all your energy just to survive, leaving nothing for thriving. You'll laugh more easily, cry less frequently from overwhelm, sleep more deeply, wake with something resembling enthusiasm rather than dread, move through days with lightness that's been absent so long you'd forgotten lightness was even possible. Had accepted heaviness as just how existence feels, when actually heaviness was just how existence feels under the particular crushing circumstances you've been navigating. May you receive the abundance arriving without deflecting. May you trust the stability solidifying beneath your feet. May you let yourself be as happy as the circumstances will allow, which is happier than you can currently imagine. May you finally exhale completely. The jackpot is spinning toward you. The home is manifesting in dimensions beyond current visibility. The stability is crystallizing like ice forming on pond. solid enough to hold your weight soon. Happiness you can't fathom yet is approaching on all these material wings. Remember this: you've been so strong for so long because you had no choice, because circumstances demanded it, because survival required it. But strength born from necessity is exhausting, relentless, unsustainable as permanent state. You're about to discover different kind of strength, the kind that comes from being resourced rather than depleted, from having solid ground rather than constantly shifting sand, from resting in security rather than bracing against next disaster. This isn't weakness. This is what humans are actually designed to experience. Stable enough to thrive rather than just surviving by fingernails. Secure enough to create rather than just enduring. Happy in ways that sustained struggle makes impossible. Happy in ways you're about to rediscover were always your birthright, just temporarily obscured by circumstances that are finally shifting in your favor.